Welcome back. It is episode 118. I'm your host, Jacob Harris, and this podcast is brought to you by Achievement Apex and Power Pit Rockingham. Today, I am joined by Richard Collins. Thanks for being here, man.
Appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
Well, I have to say it's my pleasure because it sounds like at this point you've done more podcasts than me. How many have you done?
That's a good question, actually. I run my own one that I've got for clients. We've got about 15 episodes. I sort of do them sporadically, but then I've been on a few, so they're good fun. So I'm really happy to be here and share any information or anything value that you guys or your listeners find interesting.
Yeah, look, thank you for your time, man. I appreciate it. I have probably been aware of Physique Code for a while. Like I remember it. I don't know if this makes you feel good or you're already aware of it. I feel like for me, when it's come up in conversation in the past, it's been like, those are the guys, right? So that's good, right? You want to be the guys. Because to me, it was when it was like talking about comp prep or talking about body composition or anything, the Physique Code was always in the conversation. So I feel like when it comes down to exploring who you are, because we're going to go into a lot of stuff, maybe we could go back to even further than when you started it, but to kind of explore who you are and where you started with it yourself, like health and fitness, and then we can kind of move into like when you started Physique Code and started coaching and things like that. So like what age were you when you started training yourself?
I would have been in year 10 in high school, so I would have been 2003 or 2004, I think. So that's going back a little bit of time now.
Yeah, I was like 8.
Yeah.
So. Okay. And so, like, was that, where did you live growing up?
So I've lived all over the world. Through high school, I was in Melbourne. But I've lived in a few different places in the United States. I've lived in Indonesia. Most of my life now, I've lived in Melbourne and Perth, though. So I also lived in Adelaide as well when I was younger. I moved around quite a lot when I was younger. From high school was pretty much through Melbourne, so I went to a school in Melbourne, and then I moved to Perth in 2010. Yeah, 2010, I think. So maybe about 13 years now.
Okay. And so what did you say you started when you were in the gym when you were around 12, 13?
No, sorry, in year 10, so probably would have been 15, 16.
Okay. And that was in Melbourne?
Yeah, that was in Melbourne, yeah.
Was it like Doherty's or something?
No. So I originally had gone into the gym because I was playing quite a high level of basketball, and then I was doing strength and conditioning in it. And I really enjoyed it. And then I took PE in year 11 and 12, really enjoyed that. That kind of kept the fuel going for training. I ended up enjoying training more than I was sort of enjoying basketball. And then afterwards I started studying in Melbourne, and then I went, and my teacher at TAFE was the head strength and conditioning coach for Collingwood Football Club. So I ended up doing mentorships with him. So I was working in the AFL a little bit, just sort of helping out with him. And then I started personal training, and then I was doing a fair bit of work in the sports sector. And then obviously there's a much larger target market for people that want to look better. So the sporting demographic is obviously not quite as big. So financially for me, it was a better decision I ended up working at a gym called Genesis in Melbourne. This is when Genesis and Fitness First were about equally as big, long time ago. And I ended up just sort of falling into the role of general population training, and then one thing led to another, and I ended up starting to coach bodybuilding. I think I had one client when I was, would have been 2012. Yeah, 2012, I think. No, it was 2011 because it was still in Melbourne. And they wanted to do a bodybuilding competition, and I had no idea what it was. So we looked it up, and I did the IAPC online course, which was, I don't know anybody's seen it. It's like the online bodybuilding course that you do. It's like the standard sort of Q&A sort of question course where you go through and read about the different types of diets and training, which is severely outdated now. But yeah, I ended up doing that, and we applied everything, and she ended up winning. And then it kind of, bodybuilding's a funny sport where it's a domino effect, where if you coach somebody that does quite well, you generally attract other clients that or other people that want to do it and coach with you. So I ended up just sort of, that's how it started for me doing bodybuilding. Was I just ended up coaching one person. They ended up doing quite well, and then more and more clients started coming on, and that's sort of how I fell into the whole bodybuilding role at a younger age.
And so at this time when you'd had this first client and you said she'd won the show, what age were you sort of around that time?
I would have been 21, maybe 22. 21 or 22 when I had my first bodybuilding client. So that was, about 14 years ago.
Yeah, and so at what point did Physique code become a thing? Obviously, you started to attract more clients, and then you decided you wanted to create more of a team, or did it begin as just your thing?
No. So Physique code. So myself and Alice Cousins, we started. So back, this would be about 8 or 9 years ago now. She was a nutritionist, university nutritionist. I didn't like the nutrition side at the time, and I wasn't as well versed in it as what Alice was. I was, obviously from my background, I'd absolutely love the training side. And Alice, so we ended up, she did quite well, I did quite well, coaching bodybuilding clients for a few years when we were in Perth. And then we just sort of said, well, we can delegate this stuff that we don't like if we work together. And then we did it for one season, and we ended up winning about 4 overalls in the INBA show, which is ICN now. And then clientele started coming in rapidly, so we decided to make it a business. So we very quickly sat down and created the Physique code, and then we ran it from 2 separate gyms. And then it sort of built to a point where it just didn't make any sense to continue to do it like that. So we opened our own studio, and we just continued to run, coach bodybuilding clients. Then we started a few group training things, and we sort of created a gym out of it. So it originated from bodybuilding. But yeah, we ended up getting to a point where we sort of built it into general population, group training, bodybuilding as well. So yeah, there's the background story of how Physique Code was created.
Well, I mean, it's going to sound like super elementary, but like the name's cool. Yeah. Just want to put that out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of names, fucking Be Fit, like can't even think of some random one now, and I don't want to offend someone in case I accidentally say one that's actually real, but there's a lot of names out there, and there's nothing wrong with them, but they don't stick out to me. I feel like that's a big thing with business, right? It's like the name doesn't matter that much, the service is what matters. But it's a cool name, and I feel like I want to make a bit of a comment on that, because I feel like when I first heard it, I was like, that sounds kind of serious too, right? It's like Physique Code. It's like, they sound like they're pretty like serious about what they do.
Yeah.
And obviously you are, which is good. And I've heard of Alice. That's the other thing. Like I said, it was always in the conversation. I'd always end up speaking to someone that was like, oh yeah, I did a block with Alice, or oh yeah, and I'm currently working with Alice, and then I heard your name as well. And so it's good to have a good reputation, which obviously you've built. And so one of the things that I kind of want to bring up there, because it sort of came into my head when you mentioned that you do more general, you still do the more general population stuff, and you still have that set up, or?
Yeah. So we still do. Predominantly most of our work is body composition, I still do a little bit of strength conditioning stuff with some basketball athletes and football athletes, but predominantly it's general population and bodybuilding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I might just get you to shift that mic towards you, man, if you can. So one of the questions I have about that is because obviously there's so many coaches now, heaps of people are doing it. In terms of like running the business itself, like this is probably more for my curiosity, but I find that the industry in certain aspects can probably be like a little bit saturated. Like I feel like sometimes I'm on Instagram and I'm like, oh wow, everyone's a coach now. And that's not a bad thing, right? It's good. But financially, as soon as you head into an area of like general population, I'm sure that you know, there's probably a whole, a whole story or many stories of your experience with people with how they look at health and fitness, right? Like someone who's a bodybuilder's like, oh yeah, no worries. Like I'll pay whatever I need to pay to get a service. Gen Pop is like, it's so either way. You can say a number to someone and they're like, oh, that's a bit much. And whereas you do not hear that, right, as much with athletes. So like there's an area there that I find interesting in terms of how people run their businesses and how even like I've run mine. It's like with athletes versus Gen Pop, where do you think like there's like a breaking point for people? And like, do you think there's like an area of where we can move into things being so expensive that the average person then won't look after themselves because a service costs too much, right? Like it's always going to be what they value. But where do you think there's like a line where it starts to maybe get too ahead of itself?
Yeah, I think that's a hard one because I think people buy on emotion. And obviously your body composition has a lot to do with your confidence, how you feel, 24 hours a day. So I think also it's interesting how you come back and say about the saturation, because I think, the more crowded the industry becomes, the more trainers that are successful at getting results with various types of people are actually able to charge more because it just builds that much more trust and buy-in. So I don't know if there's obviously there will be a number. It might be slightly different for every single person. But again, I think a lot of it comes down to, whenever we market in this industry, we're marketing a result. And I think the people that can provide those results generally are going to be able to charge a lot more. But again, at what point is it going to stop? I'm not too sure. I think, but I think, there's trainers out there very successful that are charging a lot of money. They're full books, waiting lists. So again, I think, when you're able to get a result consistently, and that's the key point, because I think there's sometimes trainers may come through and get a couple good results with some clients that, aren't, they're almost robotic. And then it looks amazing for marketing. But I think, but then if they end up training 5 or 6 other people that aren't that personality, they may struggle. And I think it's, the clients that are the trainers that are able to consistently do it with multiple groups of people for a long period of time are definitely going to be able to charge more. And I think, with just the more trainers that people are going to and not getting the service that they want or not getting the outcomes that they want, I think, it is pushing people to say, well, I will pay that because I've tried time and time again and I haven't been able to get a result. So maybe if this person's been able to do it, it's going to be worth the money and whatnot. So yeah, I think it's a hard one. I think it's really person dependent, but I think on the whole, prices are decreasing from what they used to. I think either prices are decreasing or, and not for everybody. Obviously, there's some absolutely phenomenal trainers that are able to charge higher prices because they can get the result, plus they deliver a great service. But when you look at it on the whole, 15 years ago, there weren't people, charging $20 a week or $30 a week. But I think it's just also just evolution of systems and, online wasn't a thing when I first started. So everything was basically trading time for money. So I don't know. It is a tough one, I think.
It's a good answer. Like I would agree with you because like for me, it's more just there's always going to be that case of like personal opinion. Like sometimes you're going to hear, I've heard numbers and been like, I think that's a bit much, and just like personal stuff. But if we're talking about the actual business side of things and like what makes sense and stuff, like pretty much how you've put it, right? Like you want $40 results, then you may be able to pay someone $40 for that. But if you want the results that someone is maybe charging $80 for, then you're going to have to pay that. So it's like, once again, it's hard to say a certain price is too much because usually it should be matched to what you're getting. The only time when you could maybe make the argument that it isn't worth it is if you are paying that $80 or $100 for those results, like let's say it's weekly online or something, and then you aren't getting it. So you're only really paying too much for something when you aren't getting what it's worth, right? That's kind of how anything works. But it's just interesting in our industry, right? Because like this, like you just hear so many different numbers, and it's like the dudes who do the online courses, and it's like $998 for like those marketing courses and stuff. All of it is really just what it's worth to you. And yeah, like you said, like if someone is maybe just wanting to move around, and we talked about this before, and they just go to F45, then whatever they're paying for that probably is just, and that it probably is worth that, especially to them. Where one of us, someone might be like, oh, why don't you just pay $20 more and have a coach? Or, it's always going to be a personal thing. But as someone who's been in the industry for as long as you have, I found it interesting to hear your perspective. But that's kind of where, I guess we talked about coaching before, and that's where it comes down to how, I guess, in-depth your coaching is, right? Brought up like soft skills and how you communicate with your client, how you teach them what to do. Two people could be charging a certain amount a week, right? But that one person could just be program, see you later. We talked about this. Here's like powerlifting is the funny one because it's like 3 lifts, do some accessories. I see like some funny stuff. I sort of spoke to someone about this the other day. I've seen like a tricep exercise of your choice or bicep exercise of your choice, which I had when I spoke to someone, they were like, oh, I don't think that's a big issue. Where to me, I was like, nah, but I think if you get in a program of someone, they should at least specify an exercise. I kind of want to delve into like what you think about that, like, and those two people, that person offering a hell of a lot more than this person and what a coach should be offering. But once again, that can be price dependent. But I kind of want to, get you to explore what you think about people just sort of like, here's a program and some random numbers, and maybe delve in a little bit to, into what you do with clients and how important you think it is to help people learn actually a little bit more about what they're doing and how to deal with everything mentally.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting topic because I think when we're looking at like what people are doing, I think a lot of it comes down to, and I learned this myself, and I think this was the turning point for me about 3 or 4 years ago, which made me a far better coach. Like I have like the before time, which was sort of 5 years ago, where I look back at it now and I'm like, I was not a good coach. We got results, but I was not a good coach. Like the processes weren't good. So when I look at it now, is getting an outcome is one thing. I think I have one of my most popular Instagram posts that I ever did was I used to think that winning pro cards and winning titles and tons of before and afters was the sign of a good coach. But now I don't. It's sort of how many people are staying on, what's the retention rates like, because, winning pro cards and titles a lot of the time comes down to, the level of discipline from the athlete, their genetic potential, and things like that. So I think for me, I became a much better coach when I realized that the process was far, far more important than the outcome. And that's sort of how I look at my coaching now. I try to make sure that with every single person, they are either finishing up with me, knowing and being able to do things by themselves, is one of my main criterias for myself. So like I may look at it and go, okay, through the process, I want to look at education. So I've created hundreds of 5 to 7 to 10 minute videos on various topics, which anytime clients come in, they've got videos that they can look at. They got videos that they can watch. So almost like a frequently asked questions. And then if there's something more specific, then obviously we'll go through it one-on-one. Those are the things for me that make your service more valuable. And those are the things for me that, like, if I look at it and I go, okay, because I can take somebody and just give them a program in macros, and they may win a bodybuilding show with it because they're that type of athlete. They don't need anything. They don't need guidance. They basically just need to be given structure and then leave them. Whereas a lot of other clients, which is probably the 95%, do need that education. So for me, that's what I put all my focus in now. And I think that in terms of service is what coaching is all about. So I try to veer away now from, and I do, like you said, things like picking an exercise of your choice or something like that. Whereas for me, I want to say, we're going to do this exercise. This is why we're going to do it. If you don't like it, then we'll change it. And, we want to make sure that, when somebody knows the why, they generally push harder and you can get more out of them. So, and at the end of the day, that's what I want to get the best out of every single athlete that I have. So I think that is where you can charge a lot more money. And I think that's what coaching should be, whether it's online or in person. I tend to look less at the result now and more about the process of getting them to where they want to get to and understand why they've done everything on that sort of journey, and then understand why they can do it themselves. Like, they're not going to need me forever. And I think if I can do that for each client, then I've been successful as a coach.
Yeah, well, I think that could be part of the issue now. I think a lot of, and maybe when I mentioned before that it can be a bit saturated. I think I've seen people come in wanting the coaching kind of lifestyle. Therefore, that has, I guess, similar to what you said you used to do, maybe, gotten to a point where they're not actually really delivering the service anymore. And it's because they want, it's like, cool, man, we all want to like work from our laptop with like, the sunshine coming through the window and have your breakfast and go and train in your own time. But you're still doing a job where I think some people have, especially now with, which is a good thing, some of the apps that have come along, I know what you guys use, like I use like Train Heroic and stuff.
That's what we use.
Yeah, good app, right? It's great. But if you wanted to, you could be real lazy with it. You know what I mean? I'm not going to say I've never done it either because I've used it for a long time now. Now I'm a lot better, but it kind of gets to a point where some people almost, I think, want to be able to be like, all right, here's your check-in, everything. This is this day, bang. All right, cool. I'll speak to you in a week, sort of thing. And then, not that there's anything necessarily wrong with that, but once again, a lot of the stuff you're talking about is missing in a lot of aspects, to the point where I've even spoken to someone before and I'm like, oh yeah, so like what happened there? Like why did you leave that person's coaching? And they might say, oh, like I would literally message them and they would just like see my message and not reply for like days, and then they just wouldn't. And I'm like, oh, like I'm not going to say like I've never, probably don't do it to clients, but like I'm not going to say I've never done it to a person, but I'm like, I suppose at that point when you're delivering a service, like that's pretty bad, right? If someone's messaging you as a client and you're just like not getting back to them multiple times over a week, like how busy can someone be? And I feel like that's where there's that lazy aspect of it. At a normal job, if you get lazy and you're in a forklift or something, it's someone else's business that suffers. You're not really ripping off anyone directly, and the productivity side of things probably won't be that drastic. But when you're doing what we're doing, it's a lot more direct, right? You're essentially kind of wasting someone's time and they're not really getting their money's worth because you just don't want to reply or you're just doing something else. So that's more, I think, yeah, kind of where I'm coming from, and I guess even what you're saying, like that you're still just charging and being a coach as I guess a lot of other people are, but you're adding a lot more in. And since I've started working with Tim, I can see him sort of wanting to do the same thing, and being around other people that think that way is healthy for me as a coach too, because now I'm thinking that way. And so that's where, when we talked about food and things like that as well, obviously you said originally you actually weren't interested in nutrition, which is funny because you obviously do a lot of it now. We talked about food, and you could just give someone macros and things like that, but obviously now you would explore that a lot more with people. When it comes to that sort of training or that kind of education that you give to people, besides the videos and you're talking to someone, what do we kind of, what would we expect in that area? Like, are we talking what we mentioned before, like making sure people are eating sort of like whole foods, meal timing, things like that?
It's really client dependent. And this is the one thing where it kind of grinds my gears a little bit in the last sort of 5 or 6 years with nutrition is it's just, here's your macros, hit these 3 numbers. There's so much more to nutrition than that, like so much more to nutrition than that. But it does depend on the client. Like there are certain client personalities that are, if you're training a coach, for example, like I have a lot of clients that are trainers themselves, nutritionists themselves. They may be fine with you just saying these are your macros because they have a really good understanding already. So there's things that I can just check over, but they probably don't need a lot of overlooking. And there are clients like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's, just to give those clients just those 3 numbers, and they're more than fine to go and do it. And they're almost, like we said before, that robotic personality. But again, that only makes up about 2% of people. So you can't train or be like, I do this, so I'm going to give it to all my clients because I'm just going to try to make a smaller version of me. Like they don't have the same dedication, motivations, things like that. So I have some clients where we don't track calories at all. We just focus on, eating protein at each meal, eating, serves of fruit and vegetables throughout the day and things like that. which is almost like an intro to good nutrition. And then, I sort of try to build it up from there and maybe say, all right, we're going to track protein. And then we can work all the way up to nutrient timing, making sure the protein sources are protein, fat, and carb sources are all going to be coming from nutritious, making sure we're hitting all our micronutrition. So it really does depend on the client. And I think this is where sometimes coaching can fail the general population, is trying to have a one-size-fits-all for every single person. And I have one of my things is like developmental athletes, which I look at as very similar to youth sports. So it's going to end up being, these are like kids learning how to play the sport. And these are people that, when they come in, you've got to teach them everything from the ground up. Why is protein important? What are good protein sources? What are good fat sources? What are good carb sources? All the way to the other side of, like sugar is not inherently bad. Everything is dose dependent. And it's sort of just educating them so that they can make better choices. And I think that comes down to the whole thing I was saying earlier about, I want clients to be able to leave me with a really good understanding that they can do it themselves. So it is really context dependent between each client, but I think, you can't just give everybody a one-size-fits-all and say, like, here's these 3 numbers, all you got to do is hit those. Because that does work for some people, but then again, like, going back all the way to the other side, just making sure people eat more protein regardless of what the protein source is throughout the day is going to be the first step for them to improve. So, and I think, you can't just give people programs in macros and then say, I'll see you in a week. You gotta make sure that they have good nutrition understanding, and you gotta meet them where they're at, learn where they're at, and then build upon that from there. So I think, from my coaching, it looks vastly different from person to person. Like I have certain people, I do have clients where I say, here's your macros, here's your program, see you later. Because I know they're gonna follow it, and they're paying for also the trust in me because I've gotten clients to where they want to be. And that could be coaches looking to go to the next level. That could be, it could also be their questions are more about their own clients, and helping them out with that. And that's coaching. But then on the other side, for general population, obviously it's very, very different. So it's always going to look really different for every single person in that process. But, coming back to what you were saying about, the 3 numbers, it is vastly important for health, for people to have a really good understanding of why they're eating, what they're eating, and then just meeting them where they're at and then building on it from there.
Yeah, I feel like there's such a big conversation to have with this, because I feel like over the last 5 years, I have probably more than 5 years, and you would have seen a lot more of it than I have. I've seen protein everything. There's not a thing I've ever seen that isn't protein. I've literally looked at stuff and been like, I don't know how they did that, but it's got protein in it now. And we talked about this before, and I don't really even know where to start with it, because I feel like for me, probably, I'm trying to think back as to where I really started seeing it, and I probably would have to say that maybe it was like yogurt, right? It was like probably yogurt that I feel like I remember it being introduced like first, and it was more of a thing. Because people used to just eat Greek yogurt, right? Which has actually got okay macros anyway. But now it's like Yopro, Chobani, everything. And then we talked before about like pizzas and ice cream and all these sorts of things. And we talked about the source of the protein. We talked about whey. And so I guess for me, it's like, maybe let's start with whey protein being the most like common one before anyone was putting it in anything. And maybe if it's in YoPro now, whey protein is, I said it to you before, as good as meat, dairy, any normal thing, even though it's processed.
Yeah, meat, dairy, eggs.
Yeah,
probably your 3 best protein sources.
Yeah. So whey's just really just a refined version of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
whey is dairy, but yeah.
Yeah. But why would I eat, maybe say like eat meat instead of just having like 6 protein shakes? Let's take how I feel out of it, because obviously I'd feel horrendous.
Well, there's going to be a lot of other micronutrients in meat that you're not going to get necessarily out of dairy. But also on top of that, right? Because like the protein sources are just going to be like the amino acids that they have inside it. And dairy, meat, eggs, your 3 most complete protein sources. So you do want to make sure 80 to 90% of your diet is there. Where we start getting into some of the issues are people looking at their protein targets and then trying to maximize it with protein bars, which might be not the best quality sources of protein. And from an energy standpoint, you will hit the numbers. And for a vast majority of people, it's not ideal, but it's better than not eating protein. But when we're looking at performance athletes, where we're looking at all the 1%ers, 5%ers, where you're getting your sources from, you're going to feel better, you're going to recover better, you're going to train better if you're eating more leucine-rich protein types, so meat, dairy, and eggs. And same thing that you said before as well. If we're eating a ton of sugar alcohols through protein bars and things like that, you start to feel like shit, don't you?
Yeah, I had 2 Lenny and Larry cookies one day, and that was like one of the worst days of my life. Hey, like I had some really intense stomach problems, mainly because of the fiber in them. But that was a bad one. But also, I think the other ones are like I used to eat a lot of those ones. They say low carb on them, but that's not why I ever got them. I think like the BSC bars.
Yeah.
And they're not that bad in terms of taste, but they do taste kind of like artificial sweetener. And if I have one, I'm always fine. But yeah, if I've ever had a day where I've eaten 2 or like 3, and I've had like maybe like Quest chips and stuff like that, yeah, I feel really not good personally. So
I think most people you'll find will be exactly the same as that.
Yeah. Okay.
So I generally with clients will always try, like when I first start with them, if they're brand new, obviously I always try to the sources of protein are meat, dairy, eggs. And then that's, if we can get that, amazing. If we need to top it up with other things, no problems. Protein shakes I add into that as well. But like, again, when we're dealing with general population, it can be a whole different context. And it could be, all right, well, this is better than no protein because they actually enjoy it. But when I look at most clients now, it's sort of 80 to 90% nutritious foods, and then 10 to 20%. So I think I said before, just for numbers' sake, like if somebody was on 2,000 calories and 200 grams of, that wouldn't be right either. No, 200 grams protein, no.
Be hard to hit.
Yeah, so like, it might be 10%. So like, if they were on 150 grams of protein, we might say, all right, have 15 grams of it from something that you enjoy. That could be one of the protein bars, whatever it is. But then the rest of it, you want to be from quality protein sources. So I may use that with, a lot of the more advanced athletes, more experienced athletes. But yeah, it is. You do want to, make sure you're getting your micronutrients in and things like that from, quality sources, because you are going to recover better. You are going to train better. Your health is going to be better. Your sleep will be better. Your I hate saying gut health stuff, but like your gut will feel better.
So the gut health stuff isn't up your alley?
No.
No? Okay.
No, not at all.
I just spent $9 on a probiotic yogurt on the way here, so now I'm really upset.
Right.
Damn it.
I think the thing with gut health is the experts don't even know a lot on it. So like I kind of just get agitated when people are coming out and making all these claims about it. And it's like, one of the people that I did work with, Gabrielle Fandara, who's like one of the world experts on gut health. And she'll say this. She'll be like, we don't know that much about it. Like we know to eat more nutritious foods is better and whatnot. But like, people are marketing off it something crazy now. So it's still very new.
Do you drink kombucha?
I've had it before.
I know we're trying not to be negative. I did not like it personally, is the
I'm
way
not
I'm
a
going to
fan
put
of
it.
it.
Yeah, I really didn't like it. I was like, I was disappointing too because it sounds nice. Even the bottle looks cool to be like pink lemonade or something, but I couldn't do it.
I don't like it from a taste point of view. That's all.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, I'm literally the wrong person to ask about gut health stuff. More than happy to stay in my own lane and not talk about that.
It's a good answer.
Yeah, but for me, taste-wise, it's not for me.
Yeah. I've never read the back. I don't even know what's in it, but I was just curious as if you drink it, because I have friends who drink it, and I don't think they even drink it for the gut health stuff. I think they like the taste.
Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I've only had it once, and I was like, I'm good. But that's an interesting. There's like all those different areas when it comes to nutrition, right? So the protein side of things, we talked about like whey and obviously just like whole foods. You'd mentioned before, like vegan proteins. Yeah. And so like the difference there. So like there's obviously like vegan proteins, collagens become like real popular. And then the other day I got like a MRE bar. If you're familiar with one of those, they sell them at Supplement Mart, and it was the craziest thing I've ever seen. It has like chicken protein, fish protein, like literally every protein. The list was like this long. And that was one of the things they mentioned. They were like, oh yeah, it's literally filled with like all these different sources. Now that we've kind of pretty much gone, look, normal food and whey, the rest are obviously going to be slightly, maybe more inferior than each other. But let's start with vegan protein. Why is that not as good?
It doesn't have leucine. So if you have vegan protein powder or vegan proteins, you want to supplement with leucine, which is what's going to help spike muscle protein synthesis. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's it.
Most nuanced, straightforward ways. I'm sure there's other things, but in terms of body composition for me, that's the area that we look at. But again, we come back to it, and if it's like if somebody doesn't digest whey well, right? There's nothing. I will never tell somebody not to have it, but I will also say, maybe we could supplement with leucine, and that may, be beneficial for you. So
leucine just comes is like creatine, just comes in like a powder form.
Usually it's a tablet.
Usually
Supplement Mart's got them in a tablet.
Yeah, okay. So it's like not even hard to do either, really, right?
No.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, I'm not, supplements are just that for me. So if people need it because it's the only way they're going to be able to get protein in, by all means, yes. But I'm always trying to get high quality protein sources first. So if that's what we have to do to use that, then no problems. But otherwise, we'll always try to go for food first.
Yeah. Well, this seems like a better time than ever to bring up some of the stuff I have here, even if we can explore it. I find it interesting. EQ Food sent me some stuff. They have a bit of an interesting setup. So it sounds like, from what I've looked at, every time they sell something, they donate like the equivalent of the money that they sell they donate it to like charity or like people that I think they're trying to do like a thing for World Hunger. Shout out to EQ because that's pretty cool. They've got chips, and I feel like they're the best ones to explore because we just talked about this before, and I've never had protein chips that I like. They've got two different flavors here. This one is called sour cream and chives, which is usually a good flavor. This one's sweet chili. So I want you to have a look at it with me. We can have a look at the protein sources in here. I'd be curious as to see what it is. Whey protein. That's what we want to see. Got whey protein right here. That's good. That's good. I'm glad that's the first thing I noticed. There's probably some other stuff in there. Some sunflower oil? Wouldn't ask for it, but not the worst thing in the world.
Gluten, syrup.
Very
interesting to taste.
Let's taste them right now.
You got the sour cream.
I probably have the better flavor.
That's like the green Pringles flavor, right?
Oh, yeah. How good are they? All right, we're going to taste this together. Are you struggling to open yours?
I'm struggling to open my bag.
Come on. Is the bodybuilding coach struggling to open the bag of the
Oh, my God.
You know what? You still opened it technically.
Yeah. It actually opened perfectly.
Well, there you go.
Just on the wrong side.
Maybe I did it the wrong way. Maybe that's how you were meant to do it.
I think I did. That's okay. All right, never mind. We got there.
All right. I'm going to try these. You try them. Sour. Wow. I don't know about those, but this is not bad.
How's the flavor on yours?
The flavor's pretty good, but the texture's what like surprised me the most because I expected them to be more like densey and proteiny, but these ones are actually quite good.
A lot of the chips that I've had when I say that, I've had like 2, have had a little bit of a cardboard taste.
Yeah.
These ones don't.
They don't, hey? Yeah, like I'm surprised. I had some the other day and they were pretty cardboardy.
The first chip I had didn't have a lot of flavor. The next 3 I did. Perfect.
Okay. I feel like I'm going to try them. You got to try these. They're really good. They're really good. Oh, wow. Look at the flavor on them.
I still can't believe I popped the bag on the bottom.
That's all right.
How we looking?
Yeah, you're going to like them. These are good, but they taste different. Ooh. Yeah, no, these are good.
See, I'm biased because sour cream, chive, sour cream and onion is like my favorite flavor in anything.
The Pringles are unreal. Like if I, you know when they say you pop, you can't stop?
Yeah.
That's it. I'm done. Like I can't stop.
I'm going with the sour cream and chive.
You like them better?
Yeah.
Yeah, these are a little bit, they're not even that hot. Like if I go to Nando's, I get really hot. But this is just a different time. I just happen to be, there's like the lighting's affecting why my eyes are watering. It's not the chips. They're not even that hot. But I'm going to not have any more of them. Sweet chili ones. This is a good time to hydrate. So we're going to double up on this promotional thing. Just go like this. I'll wipe the table.
What a segue.
You've already
I've made a mess over here.
It'll be fine. I need to wash these down. So I would love for you to try this spring water. I've been so kind for Thirst Trap.
I'll grab this one over here.
To send these. Yeah, absolutely. I shouted them out and then they sent me quite a few of these. So
knowing my luck, this is going to go everywhere.
Oh,
today,
let's
hope.
Oh, no, we're good. We're good. So you've successfully opened the can. We're good.
Right, we're good. We got 1 out of 2.
Mm.
What flavor is this?
Water.
Oh, it's water?
Yeah, this is water. This is 100% spring water. Oh, what do you think?
What do we got here? It tastes like water.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
I was going to say, it's not really a...
Super watery. The ingredient, just 100% Australian spring water. It's good. For me, it was like, what better way to hydrate people than just water? Keep it simple, right? So I feel like, because I remember hearing there was like liquid death. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's like a thing in the States. And I saw it, and then I saw these cans too. And I was like so excited. I was like, oh, there's got to be something to them. And then I Googled them, and I was like, oh, it's water in a can. But like at the same time, I feel like this is really cool, and like it's becoming quite popular, I guess, amongst like people in fitness, right? Because it kind of gives you the illusion that you're having another beverage. So like if you were out with someone and you just wanted to feel like you were having something.
Social proof.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you have clients that do it. Like probably, I feel like it's pretty popular, like sugar-free stuff, right? Like I'll have like a sugar-free lemon squash or a sugar-free Sunkist or something, just because, you know, I drank a bit when I was younger, and I kind of try not to now. So it's kind of like a good replacement that makes me still feel like I can sit on the couch and enjoy it. We talked about these sorts of supplements, but like in terms of that sort of stuff, like I'm sure you don't recommend people drink that and that sort of thing, but do you drink a fair bit yourself?
Yeah, I think, again, it comes back to that whole context of the client, right? Like, if we're trying to get a general population person to lose weight, and they drink a lot of Coke or whatever it might be, it's obviously going to be a ton of calories and not fill them up, right? So swapping to Coke Zero is probably the easiest way they're going to lower their calorie intake.
Mm.
So, and then personally, like I'm American, so I'm like predisposed to like soda, right? Like I swear that's a thing. So for me, I drink probably Coke Zero every day.
Coke Zero is like your go-to choice?
Yeah, the zero sugar Coke or whatever. It's the one with the black lid.
Do you think there's a big difference between like the no sugar Coke and Diet Coke?
Yeah.
There is a.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been such a thing for a long time, like, because all we had was Diet Coke, right? Then all of a sudden Coke No Sugar came out, and it kind of confused people because we're like, isn't that the same thing? But it does taste different.
Oh, yeah. It's like the same thing as, I always say, like water drinkers, that you can tell the difference between tap water and bottled water straight off the bat. And some people will be like, no, you can't. It's like, no, you can, 100%.
Do you not drink tap water?
No. No.
So this stuff's perfect.
Yeah.
I will say that I could be in the middle of the desert, and if I didn't have a thirst trap, I'm just going to let whatever happens, because this is the only shit I'm drinking.
Let the coyotes get you.
Yeah, basic. No, I'm with you in the sense you can taste the difference for sure.
Yeah.
Sugar-free one is like are you someone who, like just on a personal level, do you have any pre-workout or?
No.
No.
Buy coffee.
Really?
Yeah, I used to a lot, and then I don't sleep well, because I think I'm just kind of wired all the time. So I think I'm one of those people that I'm really like respond to caffeine. So I'm the person that I can't have coffee after like midday.
Mm.
So pre-workout, even if I have it in the morning, it will affect my sleep at night. So once I work that out, I sort of cut back on it and just have black coffee. And I make sure I train in the morning, because if I train at night, I don't sleep well either. So, yeah, I don't have pre-workout. I don't do. I have black coffee instead.
I like that anyway, because that like really ties in with, I don't know, what I'm kind of headed towards. I used to just feel my body was so much crap. Like a lot of the supplements we talked about, heaps of just sugar-free stuff. And now I'm like, if I have a coffee and then just go and train, like, you know, the intensity's not there the same, I will admit. Like, it's taken some getting used to. But there's just something I've had a couple of like little things with just heart rate and stuff. I thought I had like a condition with it for a while, but for me, I feel like I'm at a point now where I just feel like if I have pre-workout, it just feels really weird to like artificially speed up my heart to that extent. Yeah. You know? Like, bro, I used to like double scoop, like Ronnie Coleman's pre-workout, like, you know?
So I think the last time I had pre-workout, and this might be, like on a consistent basis, I think the only 2 pre-workouts that you could buy, or the popular ones, were like No Explode. You remember that?
No Explode.
Yeah, do you remember? No.
The names always get me, eh?
No.
Okay. I don't remember that.
Came in a red container, because they had that, and then you got the batch, and it was No Explode and Synthes 6 was the protein that they used.
Oh, yeah.
Couldn't even tell you the brand. And then the other one was Gaspari's Super Pump. Remember that?
Super Pump.
Man.
Is it really intense?
I feel old now.
Yeah.
And then they had that one, oh man, what was that one that they had to take off the shelf because it was way, like they had to change the regulations in Australia.
I think you're talking about Jacked.
Yeah.
Jacked 3D or
yeah,
something.
I had stopped before that.
Well, Aaron said, when I spoke to Aaron, he reckons he ended up.
That's why he got banned.
He bought he got banned, for that. But then he said he was still taking it for ages after they got rid of it, because he said that like he found someone who had like 9 or 10 tubs of it and he bought them, and then that lasted him for ages. Yeah. Because it had like something, not like people were saying it had like meth in it, but it didn't.
No.
Do you know what it had in it?
No, I can't remember. I think it had something that was fine. I think it just had a really high dose. Like a dose that was higher than, and it was illegal at the time, and then I think they changed the regulations and it became illegal, so they had to change it.
Did you have it? Like, had you tried it?
Yeah.
I never tried it. Was it as intense as people said it was?
I mean, it was stronger than like Super Pump. I'm the wrong person. I did try it. I'm the wrong person to ask about that though.
Yeah, you didn't.
There's like 3 or 4 of them that I remember from like 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. Anybody that's been listening to this that's been training for 15 years will know No Explode and Super Pump for sure as well.
I know Synthes 6, but I just think I remember that because that's what Ronnie Coleman used.
He was the guy that did. He was the marketer for that company. I can't even remember. There were red bottles. I can't even remember what the company's called now. But yeah.
Well, now you wouldn't be able to even work it out, man, because everything's just in cans, right? It's like no one uses powder much anymore, right? Like it's all like sugar-free Monsters or like what's the other one that everyone? Oh, they're C4. C4 cans are like a big thing. I don't know if you guys have like one of them in the gym or.
I had one of those. I didn't sleep well.
No.
That's how much I don't handle stimulants very well.
I don't like beta-alanine. I know a lot of people like it, but I'm not a huge fan of.
Oh yeah,
it makes me feel
the tingling in the limbs. Yeah.
Yeah, I get itchy lips. It's a really weird feeling. It's super strange, but
people love it though.
Yeah, it's like it just comes down to that like individual thing again, right? Like some people just do all kinds of stuff, and that's like I remember hearing and it's just bullshit. But like Mike Mensa or something apparently used to like literally just, I don't know. People said that he like smoked meth before he worked out. And I think he almost like admitted it at some point. I don't think he hit it. And I was like, that would be insane. But to reach those levels of intensity is pretty high and pretty crazy. And like, is there a side of things with coaching other people when it comes to getting people to bring more out of themselves that we can explore? Because I feel like people are reliant on caffeine for that. Where, you know, if someone's not training hard enough, what's maybe the approach that you take to try to help them push harder?
I think, see, now this is a really cool topic, and this is something that we've been exploring a lot lately. And I like always try to make tiering systems for clients, just so that I can like graph out and work out where they are and where they need to get to. From my personal experience, and everything I'm going to say here is all personal experience with clients, is a lot of people don't know how to train, right? So, and when I say that, it's like training is a skill, and training hard is a skill. Like if you look at people and you see them and they're doing shoulder presses, right, with dumbbells, and they're going up, and then one arm's starting to go up, and then they start using leverages to get the other ones up. And it's training hard, but it's trying to get like weight from A to B. And then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, you're getting the rep, but you're not really getting the rep, if that makes sense. So I always try to teach people how to train to failure by working on their stability and technique from the ground up, right? And going, all right, you need to learn how to, like, muscular failure is like the involuntary slowing of muscle, right, of the movement. So which is what mechanical tension is. So if we're pressing up, I want to teach people to push to a point where they can't push anymore without form changing, and then get them to continue to push for 2 or 3 seconds to the point the weight has stalled, like the movement has completely stalled. Teaching somebody how to do that online is damn near impossible. And this is what I've put down, getting results with clients in person better than online. Because I do have clients, and they train hard, and they think that it's not like they're lying. They don't know the skill of pushing to muscular failure. Like they push to exercise failure, if that makes sense. So it's like they're just trying to get weight from A to B, but they're moving their body to try to find easier leverages to get it up. And I think you leave a lot of progress on the table when you're doing that. So for me, I always try to get people into the gym or get them working, even if I'm coaching them online, get them working with somebody that I can get them to practice that constantly. And it does take time. That's the hard part, right, is because people want to train to failure. So they don't, and when their nervous system doesn't allow them to, at that point, like they're just trying to find ways to make it as easy as possible, they generally just go to that because that's what their brain goes to, like get the weight from A to B. And I think it is a matter of when they're first learning how to train, teaching them how to train in the higher intensities. And then once they can do that, it kind of is a skill that they'll just get better and better at as the weight gets heavier and heavier. And I think over time you see really, really good progress that can be made that otherwise may be left on the table for them. So that's how I do it personally, is I'll always, get them from the ground up and be like, and teach them how to train to failure, not by jolting the body, but by how, like, we want to move the identical way, and we want it to slow down to the point. And if you can move, great. But if we don't, that's not going to be beneficial to our goal. So we want to make sure that you lock yourself in and teach the body how to stay stable while they're going to failure, rather than use leverages to get the weight up. Does that make sense?
Well, it does, because maybe to me specifically, I did powerlifting for 3 years before I got into bodybuilding. So funnily enough, though, two things people seem to be putting together now are pretty different for the exact reasons that you just listed. Because in powerlifting, right, it's about getting the weight from A to B. So I'm willing to give up I'm willing to compromise the leverages I'm using to get the weight where I want it to. So what we're referring to here is muscular failure versus mechanical failure, right? It's like like you said, I want to be failing because my muscles can't handle it, not because like my joints can't handle it, which is the next step after your muscles can't, right? Like you said, we've all seen and probably done a dumbbell press that's like, ugh. And it's an interesting one because that's where I found out a lot more about myself once I did probably just kind of like bodybuilding kind of training, almost like I was going to do a comp for about a year with someone, and I just did a lot of hack squats, right? And that's where I learned, right? Because I was like, well, I low bar squatted heaps. So if I come out of the hole, I can just use my hips. I'll get the weight up. I barely failed squats. It was always just a movement for me that felt good. Hack squat, like I could get to a point where my knees were going to cave, but it just wasn't, I don't know if it's just stronger hips or whatever it was. But for me, I would just get halfway up and felt like I've just stopped entirely and just have to stick with it. But I didn't know that at first. And I really, like, even probably just the 2 blocks I ran, I learned a shitload about myself just from that particular exercise in that kind of, like, in that way. Because hack squats, obviously, they can lock you in a lot more. And I just felt like I could just push myself to that muscular failure as opposed to in squatting. It's like there's a few crazy people on this planet that can do it with squatting, but a lot of people struggle too because there's obviously, as we know, there's neural fatigue. There's like there's way more going on in a squat. And so the same sort of thing. And I guess that's where I kind of want to ask, I'd mentioned Mike Mensah. He then moves in. He talked a lot about like rest pause stuff, right? So is there an area of that you kind of look into as well? If someone fails muscular failure, right, is it not efficient then to, let's say this controlled circumstance, to give them a point to rest and then try and do more reps so that they can avoid that mechanical failure and get more? And then also in that context, what do you think about like drop sets? So like rest pause and drop sets to assist what you're talking about.
Yeah, so rest pause is probably my most used intensifier.
Okay.
Drop sets are fine. I probably don't use them quite as much. More so just probably personal preference. But again, I also think it depends. Like, and this is another thing where with intensifiers, they create a lot of fatigue, so you want to use them sparingly. But then on top of that is when we look at intensifiers, they're so exercise dependent, right? So like rest pause can be great. So exercises, like if it's like some exercises are much harder when the muscle's in a lengthened position, and some of them are much harder when it's in a fully contracted position. So an example for that would be a hack squat is much harder at the bottom than at the top, whereas a tricep press down is much harder in the contracted position, right? So, or a hip thrust or whatever we're going to talk about here. But different intensifiers lend themselves differently to different exercises, right? So I would say like rest pause are really good for lengthened exercises because you don't have to change weights. You don't have to, like, you're not failing at the top of the rep, you're failing at the bottom. So we can actually keep that heavier load on and potentially just get a little bit closer to mechanical failure or to muscular failure. Whereas things like short position exercises, rest pauses work amazing for as well. But then we can also have a look at the issue of like, what is the exercise setup for a drop set? Because like, if you're by yourself, you don't want to drop set a hack squat. It's going to take you 50 seconds to go between the two. It's just not going to be that efficient of an exercise, right? Or efficient of an intensifier. Whereas like if we're doing a bicep curl, for example, it probably is going to be a little bit more efficient because it's quick to change the weight loads over. We're only failing at that end part of the rep. So like different exercises are always going to lend themselves differently to different ones. So there's a lot of stuff like mentor stuff where it's rest pauses are great. I know like Paul Carter and stuff like that can't stand drop sets for whatever reasons they have. But for me, rest pauses or clusters which are quite similar but a little bit different, are always going to be my favorite way to go because we can, get it as close to muscular failure as we can in the lengthened position, rack it off, get a little bit more rest, and then we can get back into that position and keep going again. And we can actually, technique can get better at times as well. So we may be able to push out an extra 2 or 3 reps there. at the same load, which I think is another key that I probably should have brought up at the start as well. But with the rest pauses, we'll get more reps at the same load than we will potentially with drop sets. So for me, I use rest pauses almost. That's my number one most used intensifier that I'll have with clients. I think like it just works well for pretty much every exercise, and anybody that needs intensifiers can do them pretty straightforward because it's just a continuation of what they're doing. We don't have to worry too much about, stability and stuff like that. So for me, it's my number one intensifier to use.
Yeah, and like you said, there's obviously ways around it. It's like if you have 4 sets, you're probably not going to go all out with rest pauses on every single set, right? It's like you wouldn't approach it like that. But like that's where context and everything matters.
So my general rule, and again, this is just for me, this is not, other people might do it different. I tend to only use a rest pause on maybe one exercise per that. Like if I'm in one training session and I've got 3 exercises, I'm only using it on the last one. I won't use it on every single exercise. I won't, because it just, you may find that, you do hack squats on the first exercise, right? And then it's pretty taxing on the nervous system to do a rest pause on that. The next 2 exercises could be significantly worse from fatigue, not from muscular failure. So I may wait until I do leg extensions, and then I might do it on leg extensions at the end of the workout. And I think as an overall workout, you'll get you'll get a better stimulus through the whole workout that way than you will trying to do it on the first exercise and then just being neurally fatigued for the rest of it, which you may end up, you may not be using as many muscle fibers in other exercises. So, but it depends. You're always, again, it's always going to be context driven.
Yeah, it makes more sense though, even with what you were talking about, like the kinds of exercise you can do rest pause on. Like it's going to be a shitload easier on like a pin loaded leg extension.
Yeah.
And it just kind of comes down to how you want to go about it. But I also feel like it can be a little bit like advice can be like taken so many different ways, especially with like younger guys, right? So like the Mike Mensa stuff is like, oh, okay, so high intensity, my workout should only last half an hour. I only do 1 set and I rest pause and assisted reps every single exercise, and then I don't train for 4 or 5 days and then come back and do it again. It's like, man, that's not going to work for probably a lot of people. And it's got nothing to do with the fact that it doesn't work. It's just that like a lot of what he did and the approach he took was pretty specific to him and maybe the people he worked with. If you aren't going to be pushing anywhere near that level that he's kind of trying to get you to, then that method isn't going to be that effective for you, is it? You know what I mean? Because you're relying a lot on the fact that you need that recovery, but you don't need that recovery if you're not pushing to that level, right? That's why it was like high intensity training. And
again, it's interesting you say that, because then we come back to how I was sort of saying it before, is like, training to failure is a skill. And there's a lot of people that don't know how to train to muscular failure, then start taking, it's not that the advice is bad that he's giving, but it's very context driven. So, you can't take somebody and be like, oh, he said do this, so we're going to do that. And it's like, you don't know how to train within 6 or 7 reps of failure. Like your body can't handle doing that yet. It's still a skill that you need to learn. So that person there may need more volume. And there's, that will be the most, quote unquote, optimal way for that person to train. And then once they get better and more, more experience with training closer to failure, they're going to need less sets.
Yeah. So, yeah. It's different with different people.
Yeah. So I tend to have like, it's like a bell curve almost, where it's like beginners don't need a lot of volume or intensity to get results, because they're just learning the exercises and their body's never done it before. So anything they do is good. And then as they get a little bit more experienced and they start to learn about progressive overload a little bit more, they still don't know how to train to failure. So they probably are going to need more, the 4 sets, 3, 4, 5 sets, 12, 15 reps, whatever it's going to be. But then there's going to become a point where they're doing that and they're getting stronger. And now all of a sudden it's going to be too much volume for them, because their skill of getting a bit stronger is getting better. So then we need to almost be like starting point as they get better, it goes up in volume because they don't know how to train hard. Once they learn how to train closer to failure, then they start using less reps. So I think it's like, again, that's the whole thing with coaching is it's like, all right, we need to identify where the client is currently at. Because if I was to take somebody extremely skilled in training for a long period of time, I might give them 2 feeder sets and 2 working sets. So like 2 sets leading into what we consider their working set, and then go 2 sets to failure and then leave it there. Whereas somebody that's not quite as experienced, but it's just like a gym goer that's been training for a long period of time, you know, they may need 3 sets of 12 because they're getting 3-4 reps in reserve. You know, they're not trying to, but that's where their skill level's at. So for that person, 3 to 4 sets of 12 is going to be great. For somebody much more advanced, 2 sets is going to be great of close to failure. So again, it's all so context dependent. I think people tend to like adapt an ideology to what works for themselves, and then they'll find somebody that says this is the best way to train, and then they kind of attach themselves to that. And it's like, yes, it is for that person at that time, but for, you know, anybody else, maybe it's that way, but it's probably not. And I think that's what good coaching is, right? Being able to identify where that person's at, what's going to be the best training methodology for that person at that time, and then just, you know, evolve and adapt over time for them.
Well, that's one of the posts that I saw you put up a little while ago is something that I kind of want to feed into what we're saying now. And you'd put up, I think it was like when you just put up a photo of yourself, and you'd mentioned that. I'm trying to remember how you put it, but it was kind of like I'm not just a guy who doesn't look like he lifts that much or something like that, but I can still help people. And it was kind of just the concept, and you obviously know what I'm talking about, but for people listening, it was basically, I don't need to be 120 kilo shredded bodybuilder to be able to help maybe someone else be a 120 kilo shredded bodybuilder. And it's an interesting concept because social media now is big on that, right? That guy looks good, so he can probably help me look good because he looks good, which a lot of the time is not the case. Same as someone being strong. I know a lot of strong powerlifters that would probably struggle to explain actually how they do a lot of the exercises that they do. This is a conversation for me I like, because I kind of like there's a lot of people out there that don't look insane themselves that are just powerhouses of knowledge. And, you know, this isn't, you look good, bro, you're jacked, right? You still look jacked, right? More so than an average person, okay? And
I'll take it.
Yeah. I was trying to find a way to actually put it, but that sounded good.
I will, and just on a side note to that, right? I was laughing because I was at one of the bodybuilding shows about 3 weeks ago in Perth, and some girl came up. She's going to listen to this too. So you did offend me. And she had said, she came up and she was like, I follow your Instagram, and, you know, your Instagram is amazing. And it's really nice for me and comforting to see people that look like you that are, you know, teaching and don't look like bodybuilders. And I was like, that is the biggest backhanded compliment I've ever received in my entire life. I know where you're coming from, and I appreciate it, but fuck. So I was like, but yeah, so that was kind of funny. But yeah, just a side note on that. So
no,
it happens. It's common. It's cool. It used to bother me years ago, but it doesn't now. It is what it is, right?
Well, it just kind of comes down to, like, I guess, where everyone else is at, and, like, you know, you could sit there all day and talk about the different, like, reasons why things are the way they are. Like, maybe you don't want to be a bodybuilder yourself, right? Like, you're more interested in coaching athletes. So, like, why would you spend like 90% of your time, like some of these athletes do, trying to be a bodybuilder, when that wouldn't allow you to then coach people properly, which is what you care about more anyway. And so, like, there's all of that. And then there's also the same thing of, like, for a long time I was like that, and I was like, oh man, like, you know, I want bigger legs, you know what I mean? And then I was like, fuck, do I? I was like, do I even care? I was like, I don't know. Like, do I really? I'm never going to do bodybuilding, so what do I even want bigger legs for? And, like, I don't care that much about squatting weight. And then I started doing jiu-jitsu, and I was like, man, none of these guys have big legs, and they're all kicking my ass. And I was like, why do I even care about big legs? It's funny how you kind of grow and stop caring about things.
That's called maturing.
Yes. I heard there's a word for it. I was wondering. Yeah. But yeah, it's good.
Yeah. I think, like, and I'm at a point now where, and I'm completely open with this, that I've done some work with a performance psychologist. I've actually had her on my podcast, absolutely amazing sports psychologist. And I've chatted to her about this, right? Because I have like this funny thing with bodybuilding where I don't really watch bodybuilding, right? Like outside of, and I always kind of looked at it as like a negative side of myself as a coach, because I don't really watch the Olympia, like it's on this weekend, and I'll look at the results, but I'm not really like, unless it has something to do with my client, I just don't really watch it that much. And I think, with me, it's been a lot of separating who I am from what I do. And I think now I'm at a point now where it used to bother me a lot, and I used to almost force myself into it. But like, I also now understand that it's like, if it has something to do with my clients, I'm 110% in, and I always will be. But again, outside of that, like if it doesn't have anything, like it's just not, I've got it's work. You know what I mean? I've got other things that I can do that I do for hobbies. So that's been something that in the last 18 months that's been like a big sort of change for me. Is just identifying and accepting the fact there that it's like, okay, I've done this job a long time. If you were to come and ask me about criterias of ICN, if you were to show me different athletes, I can pick it apart till the cows come home, right? And that's what I'm doing as a job. But outside of that, like, I'm not a bodybuilder. I coach it. I have an absolute fascination with manipulating body composition, trial and error of seeing what happens to the body, not just in bodybuilding, but just in sport and, anything like that. Like I love it. But then when I actually goes to watch the sport, I care about my clients more so than watching the entire sport on a whole level. And I think, it's a big thing for me because I actually, now I can sort of accept that and be like, I don't think this is a bad thing. You know what I mean? Like I don't get emotional about it. Like not in the terms of it's not like it's not my entire life. It's not my entire identity. It's just what I do as a job. And I think it's actually made me a better coach.
Yeah, like you said, it's obviously part of the maturity side of things because I can only relate it to how I felt, but like powerlifting was even a big one. I just got to a point where I had to be like, I'm just a guy that likes it now, and like what I can lift is like irrelevant. I'm just like I can't think about it that way anymore, and it's like not even. And it took a lot. Like I remember I stopped bench pressing, and I haven't bench pressed in like almost 2 years, and it was the same thing for a long time. I was just like, I just cared about it, and now it's like I haven't done it at all, and I'm like, it's so funny how it just makes no difference to your life. You know what I mean? It's like it really wasn't. There's nothing wrong with bench pressing, but it was just like I don't know. My shoulders do feel a little bit better because I probably used to do it too much and used to go heavy a little bit too regularly, and now I just do a different movement, and I'm still enjoying my life, and everything's fine. So it's like you sometimes can be attached to something too much and be like, no, I have to. Like you said, you identify with it too much.
Yeah, and I just like, because again, it used to stress me out. Everyone's watching it, and everybody's asking questions. Are you going to this show, or did you see these results and whatnot? And I would always just be worried because I was like, nah, I didn't. Maybe I need to be watching it, right? Like, but I'm like, it doesn't affect me as a coach in any way, shape, or form, right? Like, I still, if there's something that's going to help my client get from A to B, whether it's general population, whether it's basketball, whether it's bodybuilding, whatever it is, I'll be all in to help them out. But that's kind of where it ends, right? Like I sort of, what I do is I help people get from where they are now to where they want to be. And, it's okay to not want to be a bodybuilder. It's okay to, those sort of things there where it's like, I don't have to be a crazy bodybuilder to be a great coach. Like I don't have to be, I'm sure there's aspects that like obviously you want to train and things like that, right? But I think there's also a vast difference between training and getting on stage, tanned, and posing.
Yeah, the two aren't mutually exclusive.
It's an interesting topic. I think that's one that I probably am still exploring and still discovering exactly where I sit with it. But in terms of the whole not looking like a bodybuilder and everybody, it's good for marketing. obviously. But, I feel like also it's a hard one for me because I can't, at the point I'm at now in my career, I can't tell younger trainers that because they're sort of like, look at all the results that you've gotten. I'm like, yeah, but that's what I use for marketing, right? Like I don't need to. You will never see me market myself. Like it's just not something because I'm not my clients. So for me, it's like, all right, I need to do a good job with a large demographic of people, and that will build the buy-in and trust that I can coach them, and they will stay. So that's kind of how I've looked at it now, rather than, oh, my body, my body's a business card. And it's like, I don't think it is. Like, I think, maybe for some people, but when you have, results around the corner of the block over years, I can tell you that, that has far more weight than how you look.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I will argue with anyone on that. That's fine. Like,
But I don't think anyone's going to argue though. I feel like it's just a younger generation, man. So it's less of an issue anyway, because it's almost sometimes like you just get confused about like the clients you want, really, and maybe not you, and not even really me.
Oh no, definitely me on that. Yeah.
Yeah, like but it's like you don't really want the younger kid who wants you to look like a bodybuilder anyway. It's like that's not the client you want, because they're not really after someone who's educated. They're not really concerned whether you're educated. They're just like, oh, well, if you've got big arms, then you must be able to help me have big arms. And it's like, we both know there's so much more to it than that. There's like we said, there's people out there that look great that still, and this isn't, I'm not even really directing to anyone, but there's still there's going to be people that aren't good coaches that do look great. And so that even kind of backs up more what we're saying here. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, just because someone can do something doesn't mean they can teach it. And I feel like it goes the other way around. And there's a lot of good I've just started working with Tim, right? This isn't to offend Tim either, right? But Tim,
we can offend Tim all we want here. That's fine.
Yeah, to be fair,
that's my boy.
That's pretty much the only way me and him communicate. Yeah. But Tim also does not look like Mr. Olympia, right? But he's a good coach, you know what I mean? And coaches people that can get in really good shape. And so and he helps people get there. So I'm noticing more of a pattern of education and people that actually know more about what they're doing, and like you said, have that kind of fascination with body composition and are interested in it. And the more I kind of seem to kind of connect more with people and what they're doing, it's less and less with people that look like bodybuilders. Not that that's a problem, but it just seems to be from my perspective.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, when you can get results for a bunch of different people, that's the business. That's the business card to me. Like that's the first image, I guess, of like what a potential client sees is the results. And then I think when you compare, because that doesn't mean everything results. And again, I've gone through this so many times, right? Like I have, and I'm the first person to admit this. You can ask anyone. I have some clients that are like, a monkey could train them and they would probably win a bodybuilding show. Doesn't mean they don't work hard, anything like that, right? Just they're genetically in a place where they're going to be very hard to beat. Or do well. Maybe not win, but also just do well. But so I don't think, just placings in bodybuilding is a great reference for coaching. Because I know coaches that have, a few clients that have done amazing, but I would, when you see them with the 90% of the other people that aren't like that, they don't really, progress much. So for me, it's like, that's that first initial business card, but then how you communicate to them, how you educate them, how you try to get the best out of them. Because like you can have people, right, that have no business being on a bodybuilding stage or have tried to lose weight for 10 years and have stopped and started because they've just done 8-week, 4-week plans, whatever it might be, right? And you can educate that person to make sustainable long-term changes that lead them to a result that they wanted. And it may not be winning a bodybuilding show, or it may not be like photo shoot lean for someone, But if you can get them to sustainably improve themselves and understand why they're doing it and enjoy it, then that's the coach, right? That's what takes skill as a coach. So I think it's an interesting one. It's a topic that I really like delving into, especially more so now because of social media. And, not, just because this person has X client that won whatever show, I don't think that is super relatable to like a one-off thing. I don't think that's super relatable to the skills of a coach. And I can tell you from a personal point of view, like I said earlier in the podcast, is my coaching really developed in the last 3 years when I worked out how to better communicate with clients and how to not make everything one size fits all. And maybe the results don't show as much in like the placings of my Instagram popular bodybuilding clients, but for the 85% of people that have never been able to get results before that I'm now able to get results with, like that's where my coaching game has excelled. And I think, my retention is higher. My referrals are far higher from those people. My buy-in and my trust and things like that over social media becomes a lot more, not necessarily because of XYZ bodybuilding wins or because Richard looks a certain way or whatever it is, right? Like I've done this whole thing without looking a certain way, but I've done this whole thing and I've got really good trust and buy-in, and it's, because of all these referrals, references, and being able to help the 95% of people, it doesn't matter if it's a first time in the gym or a bodybuilding client, I can get them where they want to get to. And I think I've done that now more so because of effective communication.
Yeah. I mean, if that doesn't get you a client from someone listening to this, I don't know what will. Because I'm 100% with you on what you're saying, man. Like you're getting clients because you're good at what you do and you can help people. And that's really like the baseline of coaching. But it's like I said, it's just the ball gets dropped a lot now. I think like I've spoken to people who have come from other coaches and stuff, and it's like, maybe that coach hadn't been doing it that long and they may be on their own journey to learn a little bit more about it. But it sounds to me like, even just talking to you is kind of, I've gotten something out of it in myself to even be even more motivated. And obviously, like I said, being around Tim, it's the same thing. It's like coaching is a job, and there's a really important level of integrity that needs to be involved there. From your perspective too, you need to feel like you're a good coach, which is obviously something that you feel now but haven't always. And that's like, I feel like anyone listening who's even a coach themselves could take that on board and be like, you know what, like, am I actually, a lot of people will try to minimize what they're doing so that they have like work-life balance. But I think a lot of people don't realize, like, I can actually do a hell of a lot more without taking a lot more from myself. I could actually just be a better coach without having to give up a shitload more of my own time and feel like I'm giving them more than what they're paying me. That's not the trade-off. The trade-off is like how you're delivering what you're doing, not how much of what you're delivering is being put there. So, and I've learned that too. It's like the quality of coaching, which is exactly what you're talking about.
And it's do you know who Dean McKillop is?
I've heard the name, maybe.
So Dean's probably he's not probably, he's one of the best bodybuilding coaches in Australia. He used to be in Queensland. He's over in Europe now. But he put up a post the other day, and it was maybe one of the best fitness industry posts, and I just want to reshare that because it kind of ties into this. So he had 2 athletes win IFBB Pro Cards at Nationals on last weekend. So Tom Stanley, one of his clients, and then another guy. And he sort of said, the 2 pro cards weren't a reflection of how good he is as a coach now, but his 10 years of coaching and doing his job to a very high level has built him buy-in and trust so that athletes like Tom and athletes like his other client want to work with him and have trust that they can take them to the next level. And then that's what, so he's saying that's what earned him, those clients. Like he's saying, I didn't magically do anything with these guys. These guys are great athletes. I'm not trying to put my footprint on it and say this is because of me. But what is how well he's done for 10 years. And those 2 pro cards were a result of the accumulation of 10 years of referrals, buy-in, trust that he's created within the bodybuilding industry that allow top athletes to go coach with him. And I think that's so important because we're at a time right now where people are, these are the athletes that I want to coach, and this is the marketing that I want to do because these are going to get me more clients. And people need to kind of pull back a little bit and realize, and it's like, it's a buy-in and trust thing, right? So like, it's a similar, not on obviously on that level, but a similar sort of thing with mine. It's like, a lot of the time athletes come to me is because I've done well and have great referrals from so many people for such a long time. And that's what's important in coaching. And it's like doing your job at a high level for a long period of time gets you to where you want to be at, not necessarily like I need to work out how to go viral on social media and then I'll get all these clients, or I need to work, those sort of things there. And it's like, just do your damn job as good as you possibly can. Help the people in front of you, regardless of whether they're hard to train, not, that's what makes you a good coach. And those are the accumulations. When you learn those things, those are the accumulations of what gets you to a point where you have trust and buy-in, where you can put anything you want on social media and it's going to draw traction and you're going to pull clients from it. So I think people are trying to rush the process in terms of coaching. And I think a lot of people just need to relax, understand that they're still new, or they understand that they don't know everything, and that's okay. And you have to you have to experience everything. That's what makes you a good coach. So don't rush the process of trying to get there. Just coach as many people as you can and learn on the job. I think that's the most important thing in this fitness industry as a coach, which people are trying to avoid at the moment. So hopefully, tides will turn and the pendulum will swing and we can get to a point where, we can be out there trying to help people as much as we possibly can, and then do it for such a long period of time for so good that we get to a point where, you're not having to try to go viral to make a business.
Yeah, man, that's probably one of my favorite things that you've said this whole time. That was like some really, really valuable information and meant something to me too, because I think being a younger coach, you can get in the wrong mindset about things. Not necessarily the viral side of things, but sort of a little bit. You can, like, sometimes it's almost like you're waiting for something. Like, I'm just coaching in the meantime. And then when this happens, then I'll be like, and it's just like, there's nothing to wait for.
Just
like
coach.
The time is now.
Yeah.
So.
And again, I've copped a bit of kickback from that, right? Because they're saying, you got to market yourself, and you do. But my whole thing with it is like, don't spend all your time, because if you market, and this is just for coaches, and I say this all the time in mentoring, is like, if you just market and not become a quality coach, at the end of the day, like, if you have a great organic product, when you market it, it just goes bang. It's like pouring gas on a fire, right? But then if your product or service is not there and you spend all your time, I need to get X amount of clients in, and you don't have the quality product that's going to keep clients there, then you get 30 or 40 clients maybe from the marketing, and then you can't get them results. You don't have the right systems in place, things like that. And all of a sudden, now you've got bad reputation as a coach. So I think it's really important, like, to, yes, focus on marketing, but also, don't neglect rushing the process of becoming a good coach, because once you are, then it's like pouring gasoline on fire, and you have trust and buy-in, and you can go back to the money thing. You can start charging far more than anyone else, and then you sort of can create products and services or like courses or things like that where people are going to come, and then you've got a whole bunch of different streams. If you look at any successful coach in the fitness industry for a long period of time that's, doing things on a very large scale, they've all been really damn good coaches for a really long period of time and gotten a lot of results. So I just feel like that phase is trying to get rushed a little bit.
Yeah, I feel bad. It's like a podcast, but I have nothing to reply to you, because it's just truth. It's like knowledge bombs right now. I feel like coaches that are listening, need to absorb that because I'm taking a lot from it. It's a really good way to put things, and I've definitely simplified things from a starting point. And I've seen a lot of systems not work. I've worked at a couple of gyms now, and I've seen systems like, you know, we're gonna have this like Facebook group and nutrition stuff and whatever, and like no one's monitoring it, and then people do it, and then like stuff isn't being reported back to people and all sort of stuff, and it just implodes and goes nowhere. And so simplicity is like sometimes the key, and to just like refining what you're doing. And then if you want to add things as you're going, like you said, it's more about making sure the systems are in place, because otherwise like someone's going to come in and then just be out in the same breath. It's like not even, there's no point. It's like wasting your time and theirs. And then that's another possible client that you now won't have. That's the other thing too. Like, you know, I live in Rockingham, or like we're in Perth anyway. Like even if you're being a coach here, wherever you're being a coach, but like even for example, using someone that's from here, it's like we're pretty isolated. There's like not that many people. After a while, with enough of that revolving door happening, like people are just going to not come to you through word of mouth, because they're going to be like, oh, well, no, I went there, but nothing happened. Yeah. You just didn't get anything from it. Where, like you said, you've had the opposite effect. You don't need to look a certain way or try to do all this crazy like paid post stuff or viral marketing, because it's just like people just know your service is good.
Yeah. And I think, you know, once you have the service, great, that other stuff works amazing. I'm
it's like on top of.
Yeah, I'm not one of those people that's like, don't market. Maybe I used to be like that, but I'm not now. Like, it's just more so maybe get the service and products right, and then, you know, then it kind of, again, pours the gasoline on fire. When it's already good, you can make it incredible. But you got to make it good first.
It's like cooking a really shit cake and then trying to cover it in icing. It's still going to taste like shit.
That's a good one. I haven't heard that.
I just freestyled that. Just
yeah, there we go. That's a great one. I love that.
You can use it on the next podcast.
Yeah, for sure. That's coming in.
Yeah, man. Look, this has been the most valuable part for me. I've probably only coached for maybe like 7 years, but I feel like
it's a long time still.
It's a bit. I mean, I started a lot of like specific populations, so group stuff, a lot of like older people and stuff like that. But that once again, right? I learned so much from that I've been able to watch other coaches, and like you said, they jumped to like, I'm doing online, charging this much, and then there's so many experiences they've missed out on. So as soon as they have a client who, for whatever reason, maybe is suffering with something that I learned in my experiences, they didn't, and then they don't know how to deal with, and then all of a sudden they can't help that person. Where me, like I've had people come along and they've had an issue with something, and I've gone, oh, well, I worked here for 4 or 5 years and had this come up heaps, so this is how I know how to deal with it now. And that's, so I'll always be happy that I did, especially group stuff, for a couple of years, because that helped, man.
I always say to people, so I went to a seminar. Do you watch AFL?
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit. So the old coach of Richmond, like 3-time premiership coach, Damien Hardwick, he always said, he's like, if you want to learn how to coach well, go coach youth sports. So he's like, if you can get a group of kids to pay attention, you can coach anyone. So that's, you know, something there. And it's like, now that I look back at it and I'm like, oh, I know a few coaches that coach like their kids' sport teams, right? And they're all amazing coaches. And that just kind of reiterates how much like the communication side of things. And it's like, you know, they do have the same problems. They don't necessarily all want to be there. They're inconsistent, and you got to train them skill-wise from the ground up. Like, that is identical to what most general population clients are. So, you know, you get good at things like that, and there's a lot of commonalities between sport and coaching people in the gym, I think. But, you know, all those things are just experiences that you're going to get to, you know, be a better coach. And like you said before, right, like, you know, coaching different demographics, like, it all ties in, always. Always, everybody from a different demographic. There's going to be overlap from elite athletes to elderly population, you know, communication-wise, maybe anything, right? So, like, the more people that you train when you first start, I think the better and more experience that you're going to get, which is something that obviously you've worked out as well, how important it is to be able to get that experience, because there's things that you do now with clients that you've learned from previously that you're like, oh yeah, I remember that, that somebody else maybe just doesn't have the experience. And that's all stuff that adds to your service that allows you to charge more money.
Yeah, I think, and like that, yeah. Well, kids is a good example, because we did kids classes for ages where I was, and it was, man, they were always fun because it was like, oh man, there was always like a kid hanging upside down or something. You were like, just come over here, you know, like it's like you said, it was a challenge as a coach, and like that's where you find yourself after the session. That's when you really like, like that took it out of me, you know. But it's a good feeling. Like there's nothing worse than when I have done PTs in the past or classes before, and it's like you're getting nothing out of it. You just have someone who just kind of like isn't interested in maybe going hard, and maybe they're just kind of moving around and like you're just counting reps. That's where I got to a point where I was like, and I've even decided now, you know what I mean? Like I really don't push PT because I'm not interested in it. I love group environments. Even if it's 4 or 5 people, just think it's way better personally. And so that's the other thing as a coach. I think you need to forget about like, you know, not forget, but like when you're talking about business, money, what you want to charge, all this sort of stuff, think about what you want to do. Like if you don't work in different environments, you're not going to figure out what you actually enjoy. And then all of a sudden you've been doing PT for 2 years, and one day you're on your way to work and you're like, you know what? Like I actually hate this shit. I hate counting reps. It's boring. I see the same chick, you know, or guy who's just complaining about, you know, their partner or something, and like you're really unhappy with that. And that's obviously just like a random example, but I've been in situations. Yeah, I've been in those situations.
Yeah, it's a really common one, I think. And then when you're enjoying it, you're obviously going to do it at a higher level, better service.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I'm really glad we covered that. It was like a really interesting to hear your experiences as well, and like just even how you've grown, because you're being who you are now. And like I said, you're fairly regarded. It's like you were obviously at a point where you didn't even, and obviously at the time you probably weren't telling clients like, I don't really think I'm being a good coach, but it's like you don't do that, right? You just kind of develop, and as you learn. So it's good to hear that you were even at a point where there was probably people that still thought you were a good coach, and you probably still were helping a lot of people. But even at that point, you were able to be like, no, but I can do more.
Yeah, and it's all about reaching your potential, right? Which is the same thing for athletes. It's like, all right, cool. This athlete might have done really well in a bodybuilding comp, but they were only at 80% of where they could potentially be at. So, like, that placing doesn't matter. You know, it's about getting that person to where their potential is, whether it's general population or, you know, whatever it is. And it's like, it's just important to look at that as whether you're an athlete or a coach, is, you know, it's like I can coach people and help them, but I can probably be better. So I need to learn how to be better as a coach, which is something that, you know, every coach should be doing even now. Like I look at things 6 months ago that I was like, I can't believe I did that, which is just a sign that we're continually learning. So it's the same thing with athletes. It's the same thing with coaches. And I think as long as you're always aware of it and always trying to improve it, I think, you know, you're going to be in the top 2% of personal trainers in the industry.
Yeah, I think as a coach, if your job is essentially to help people to continue to develop themselves, you should probably make sure you're doing the same thing as well. So, man, like I have to put you through a speed round before you go, because there's a couple of things we didn't cover, but I need to know the answer to them. Otherwise, I won't be able to sleep.
All right.
So I'm going to hit you with like, it's going to be hard for you. It's like, there's a do not elaborate clause.
Gotcha.
Right? Favorite wrestling move, like, of all time? It's a big question. I know it's hard. I will allow you to choose more than one if you have to.
F5.
F5.
Brock Lesnar's finishing move. Crazy.
Oh, I'm going to have to YouTube that one. I don't think I've seen that one in a while. Brock Lesnar's.
You got to see it live, though. It's different on TV. It's different live on TV.
It's different live?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Okay. Brock Lesnar's. I'll have to YouTube that one. Favorite movie?
Road Trip.
I was just talking about this last night because of Tom Green.
Yeah. Road Trip.
That's a cool answer. All right.
Road Trip or Old School?
Okay. I know exactly who you are as a person with those two answers. That's awesome. They're cool answers. Yeah. Okay. Music. Are you a music guy? Do you have like a favorite band, favorite album? Or maybe even like a song that you love to train to?
I like popular metal and hip hop.
Define popular metal.
I like Korn, Marilyn Manson, Limp Bizkit.
It's like new metal.
Wow.
Is that what they call it? New metal? Like,
It's definitely not new. They've been around a long time.
oh no, sorry. That's actually what it's so like. NU.
Oh, okay.
It's called like new metal. I don't know why they called it that. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't even know that. Yeah, or hip hop.
Hip hop. It doesn't name like a hip hop artist.
See, I love Jay-Z, Nas, that era.
I almost knew you were going to say that before you said it. I don't know why. Well, you like basketball as well, still. So I'm like,
Jay-Z, Nas.
Yeah.
Gotta love Eminem.
Yes, yeah, good. All right, man. These are
Dre,
all
Snoop, Exhibit, all those guys.
quality answers. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but Exhibit was on Tom Green's.
No,
Tom Green used to do like a Saturday Night Live kind of show.
I've seen that. Yeah.
Where Exhibit was on it, and him and Tom Green rap together. If you've never seen it,
okay, I'll watch that.
I'll
Gotcha.
link it
All
to
right,
you. It's
I'm
so
on
good. If you could hang out with anyone for a day, they can be alive or dead, fact or fiction. They don't have to be a real character, but you could hang out with one person for a day. Who would it be?
Probably Jay-Z.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You go hang out with him though, right? Like I'd want to be in his jet, going to his place, like seeing how he lives.
He's had a crazy life and like what he's done. I'm not allowed to elaborate, my bad. Yeah. But yeah, everyone, yeah.
Well, to be fair, I'm elaborating.
Yeah.
No, that's a cool answer as well. If you could only like just out of pure enjoyment, not from like a biomechanic standpoint, if you could only do 2 exercises for the rest of your life, and let's just say your physique would say perfectly balanced, you could only do 2 because you enjoy them, what would they be?
Trap bar deadlift would definitely be one.
Every power lifter listening to this is like,
Yeah.
I've always gotten shit for a day because I love them.
Yeah. I mean, you can pick deadlift if you want. That's fine. But trap bar deadlift and probably dumbbell bench press.
Dumbbell bench press feels good. This is like I said, I don't bench press barbell. Dumbbell bench press.
Yeah.
And if you could train with anyone, for a session, I'm not big on training with people, so I don't know why I asked this question because I prefer to train alone. But if you could train from someone and like learn from someone for a session, yeah. And it could be like Ronnie Coleman in the 80s. Like there's no timeline.
Yeah. To learn from. Okay. I don't know about learn. I'm in a really lucky position where a lot of my mentors I've been able to train with. I know them on a personal level, and I've been able to train with them.
Can you mention some of them? Or
Yeah, like Dr. Mike Isertail is a huge one for me. You know who would be fun to train with? And this isn't to learn from, but you know who would be fun to train with? And I'm jealous of my mom because she got to train with him. CT Fletcher.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
dude, that'd be cool.
So my mom paid like $300 to do a training session with her, and they filmed it. It was hilarious.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was so out of character. It was great. But yeah, I just think it would be fun.
Yeah, no man, CT would be insane.
That wouldn't be to learn. That would be just
to get yelled at.
Yeah, just something.
Just want to get yelled at. Hey.
That's an experience.
My favorite thing ever is like I came across a video a couple of years ago. Maybe it's like I think he's like it's called like CT Fletcher benches 500 pounds or something. It was on YouTube, and he's like he puts it on his chest. And he just says, sometimes I like to just sit this here and think about life, and then just presses it up effortlessly. I don't know what. And I think that was when he was like 300 pounds.
Yeah, he's wild. He was crazy.
Yeah, insane, man. That'd be a cool answer. So, I think for me, man, like it's hard to summarize the conversation that we've had, but it's been a learning one more than anything, which I can't say is surprising. I know you have a lot of knowledge to provide.
I'm not that exciting. I like teaching better than. If you're going to talk about me on a personal level, you're probably talking about basketball and wrestling.
Yeah, but they're two exciting things.
Yeah, that's my 2 hobbies. Outside of that, like,
can you dunk a basketball?
I have about 12 years ago, just like off 2 feet. Like I wouldn't even call it a dunk. But yeah, I have. I just can't say no to that answer.
Yeah, if you had,
I'm not sure I'd call it a dunk, but
I feel like you've answered it.
Yeah,
and then you've just downplayed it.
Like, yeah, come on. Yeah,
I'm just, you know what?
Come on, Richard.
We'll cut it out. Richard has dunked a basketball. There we go. That's the only answer. He hasn't. None of the other stuff.
It's not. It might have been a touch the ring and the ball went in. But no.
Stop it. Man, so look, I'm gonna start. Well, I'll let you start. Actually, is there any shout outs you want to give before you go? Always shout out people at the end.
Shout out people. Okay. Who do I like? Nah.
Not Tim.
Nah. I love Tim. Nah. If any of you guys want to hear any more or come and pick my brain or come and work out with us or anything like that, you can come grab me on Richard_Physique Code. We got our business page, which is just @PhysiqueCode. If you have any questions or anything like that, then come and send me a message. In terms of shout outs, we're going to Bali in 2 weeks or next weekend. We leave on Thursday. Yeah, Thursday. So my partner Jazzy is competing over there, and I got another client, Michelle Edmead. So good luck to them. But I think that's. I don't know. I don't have sponsors or anything like that.
Well, that was good though.
I don't know.
I mean,
I sponsor myself.
I'm just a sellout. Next time you come in, I'm just going to be like covered in like merch and gold chains and stuff. I'll take anything.
That's fine.
Look, I will give a shout out to Achievement Apex and Power Pit Rockingham for being sponsors of this podcast. I will give a shout out to EQ for their food. The chips were pretty good. The sweet chili wasn't even that hot. I could eat the whole bag if I wanted to. I don't want to, but if I wanted to, I could. The thirst trap for keeping us hydrated.
I've been drinking that the whole time. It's good.
You feel hydrated?
Yeah, I'm good.
Look at that.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to say. It's boom. And I will give a shout out to Everyday Athlete because they hooked me up with a shirt, which I decided to wear through this whole podcast. When I met these guys, I met them at one of the strongman comps, and their reasoning for Everyday Athlete is pretty much that they just wanted to make clothing and just for like anyone who trains ever, which I like because niches are cool as well. But I love the idea that someone's like, nah, like being healthy and training in general is wicked, and it's for the everyday person because that's me. I'm an everyday guy.
So am I, to be honest. Yeah.
There you go. So that's pretty much all I can think of. I will give a shout out to my mother as always, and then a shout out to Richard. Thank you for coming here today, man. I appreciate your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. We will make sure we do it again. Also, shout out to Maggie.
Thanks, Maggie. Hey, one more. We got to shout out Roman Reigns because he won retained his title this morning. So.
Oh, okay. Is it if we were to
crown jewel? He got it.
Can we find those highlights on YouTube?
Yeah, of course you can.
There you go, Roman Reigns.
Probably on my Instagram story, to be honest.
Go to Richard's Instagram story to find out about Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
This has been awesome, man. Let's do it again.
Appreciate it.